Namaste, Tom. Yes, hi. Wanted to ask
Hello.
something.
Namaste. Hello.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my question was, well, useful. You were just touching a bit on this with Aklis, but it was about the different types of samadhi. So your nirvikalpa, savikalpa, and sahaja. Um, and yeah, I was rewatching a few of your videos on this to try and understand, but I still didn't quite get it. So I wanted to ask further. So I understand that there's the concept that there's a samadhi with objects and without objects. Um, but I was just trying to understand how you actually know if that's happening, like what that actually appears like, if it's possible to describe. Um, and what is like Sahaja Samadhi, like natural, is that with objects or is that without objects? Um, and like I think you said with Douglas, you have some savikalpa, like if like when I pray to Bhagavan or when I do kirtan, I feel some, or when I feel some gratitude and love, I feel some essence of that. And then also when I turn within, there's some essence of that nirvikalpa. But at what point do you know that it crosses that line, if there is a line, into this sort of samadhi state? And yeah,
Yeah.
that's my question.
Thank you for the question, George. Thank you. And I know you're doing work on the teachings, right? You're doing some work understanding the teachings. So I know you're asking from an earnest place. Okay, we don't have to worry about these things, George. And I know that's kind of like annoying to hear because you're trying to understand the what these terms mean. But I just want to answer honestly. And if you want, you can ask me again, and I will explain what the terms mean. But I want to say to you, we don't need to know about this stuff. Yeah. We don't need to know about any of this stuff. To whom does this question arise? These ideas of samadhi. And there are times you'll see some of my videos and writings where I write about it, or, that's at that moment in time. There was a movement to write about it, to speak about it, sure. But why do we need to know about this stuff? These concepts, these words. To whom do these thoughts arise? To me. Who am I? Find out. That's still what matters. That is the true samadhi. Is it savikalpa? Is it nirvikalpa? Is it sahaja? Is sahaja with objects, without objects? We'll find out. To whom does this arise? The true samadhi is just being yourself. That is the ultimate samadhi. All the other samadhis are just states of mind that come and go. So, are you experiencing a state of mind that comes and goes? Or are you the self? If you're just experiencing a state of mind that comes and goes, you can call it what you want. You can call it savikalpa, nirvikalpa, samadhi, savikalpa, samadhi. You may call it samadhi, you may call it something else. It doesn't matter. It's an experience, comes and goes. All experiences come and go. What you are doesn't come and go. No, yourself, that which doesn't come and go. That is it. That is the true samadhi. You can call it nirvikalpa samadhi. You can call it sahaja samadhi. You can call it savikalpa samadhi. Doesn't matter what you call it. So does that satisfy the question, or do you want to ask again?
Yeah, I mean, like, and every time I hear the response, it doesn't matter. That always makes me happy somehow.
See?
Um,
See? Good. Good.
I love that I don't need to understand this, really. Because well, for the longest time I didn't really try to understand these teachings. Um and for years I'd just go into like a feeling of bliss around these teachings, and my kind of mind didn't really, I don't know if that was like a trance like thing, but it's like my mind just didn't really have any interest and just wanted to feel that bliss. But it's just like recently my mind is kind of come alive or um, and wanted to understand these teachings on a conceptual level as well. And I felt like that's been helpful, but I don't know.
It
It's
is.
also
It can be very helpful indeed. Absolutely. Yes.
mm,
But in a way, I have actually given you a conceptual teaching in my answer. I've
mm,
given you the concept that you don't need to know these concepts. That is an important thing to know. I've also given you another concept, which is that that which comes and goes is a state of mind or an experience, and that
mm,
is not essential. And that which
mm,
doesn't come and go is what you are, and that is the true samadhi. So I have actually given you concepts. If you, you know, you can, if you hear my answer, you'll hear that there are concepts in there.
mm,
It doesn't directly answer your question, but it does point the way to liberation, I hope.
mm, yeah.
Now, the thing is, if you're reading scripture and you want to understand what these different states mean, then you will have to know definitions and things. But there's no need to read these scriptures. And they all say different things. They all define the words differently anyway. You see, over the last few thousand years, where all these people have been talking about these different samadhis, they all talk about the words in different ways at different times. These are vague terms, they're not well defined. And even if they are well defined, those good definitions, they change over time.
Mhm. Okay. So what I'm taking away is I'm just I'll trust this resonance, this like presence and the experiences they'll come and go and not to be all that concerned.
That's it. That's it. Why do we care about samadhi?
Mm, mm, mm.
You happy with that?
Yeah, happy with that.
Good. Now I'll tell you what they mean. See, samadhi, we can loosely say, is any peaceful state of mind. Yeah, now, people disagree with this, of course, as well. There, because that it depends how you want to define it. Peaceful state of mind. If you are seeing objects, perceiving objects, and you feel at peace, we can say that's savikalpa samadhi. If y- if you are not perceiving objects, because let's say your attention is withdrawn from objects, and you feel a deep sense of peace, we can call that nirvikalpa samadhi. These both come and go. These both come and go. When we know ourselves as we are, we feel eternal joy and peace. Now, when I say we feel eternal joy and peace, it's beyond a feeling. It's not a perception. It's something beyond that. This is just putting into words something we cannot put into words. It's me trying to express the lack of suffering and the fullness of the self. Yeah. In that, there are no objects. So that's we can also call that nirvikalpa samadhi. So now we have two nirvikalpa samadhis, one that comes and goes and one that is self-realization, right? So in the scriptures, we sometimes see some, and we see Bhagavan saying this as well, Ramana. Some places he'll say nirvikalpa samadhi is a state of mind that comes and goes. He's talking about that first nirvikalpa samadhi, which is a peaceful feeling in the absence of objects. Yeah. Shankara will say this is nirvikalpa samadhi is a state of mind that comes and goes. Yeah. Other places, Shankara, Bhagavan Ramana, Upanishads, they say nirvikalpa samadhi is the only way to liberation. We see this in the Upanishads. We see Shankara say samadhi is the only way. Gaudapada says samadhi is the only way. Bhagavan Ramana says samadhi is the only way. They're talking about self-knowledge, being your true nature, being your true self. Okay. Now, the state of self-knowledge is effortless. It's natural. It's easy. Now, the word for effortless, natural, and easy is Sahaj or Sahaja. So this state of self-realization is also called Sahaja Samadhi. Because there are no objects present, the full the full technical name of it is Sahaja Nirvikalpa Samadhi. When you hear Bhagavan talk about it, sometimes he says Sahaja Samadhi, but often he'll say Sahaja Nirvikalpa Samadhi because he's explaining it's without objects. That is your true nature. That is self-realization. It's a synonym for liberation. Now, are objects present in Sahaja Samadhi or not? No, they're not. But sometimes Bhagavan will say they are. It is objects are present. He will say Sahaja Samadhi is you're fully integrated with life. When objects are present, when perceptions are present, objects means perceptions, right? They're synonyms. Perceptions means objects. Objects means perception. Why does he say this? It's because he's explaining it to somebody who does not accept the nirvikalpa nature of liberation. So he's giving the teaching at an appropriate level. If you look up Sahaja Samadhi on tomdas.com, I haven't got very many posts on it, but I believe there's an excerpt where Bhagavan Ramana explains that in true Sahaja Samadhi, there are no objects present. But many other times you'll find he'll say Sahaja Samadhi is when objects are present and it's a natural state through all the normal life, it is there. He's describing liberation in this life to somebody on their level so they can understand and stay motivated and not dissuaded from pursuing the path. You understand? Any questions? So there are two nirvikalpa samadhis. One is a state of mind and one is the self-realization. The first one is non-essential for liberation. The second one is liberation, and therefore it is essential for liberation because it is just liberation.
Mm. And in the fleeting state of mind one, is um is it like there's literally no perception? There's no sound, there's no sight, no
Yeah,
sensation,
it's just like sleep.
like sleep, yeah.
It's like sleep, but it's a trance-like state. Yeah, it's a trance-like state. There may be some subtle perception there that you're not aware of, that you're not perceiving. So you may think you've had a nirvikalpa samadhi experience, but your mind is just not refined enough to notice that there are perceptions there still. For you, it may feel nirvikalpa. It's like imagine you're sitting in a very silent auditorium and you think you're completely silent, but somebody who has got better hearing than you, they can hear all these noises. But because you're not accustomed to silence, your hearing isn't accustomed to these very low level noises. You think it's completely silent. But maybe after being there for 40, 50 minutes, you start to hear these noises as well. Oh, yeah, it's not silent. It's like looking at a cloudless sky. You might see one or two stars. But as your eyes become accustomed to it, more and more stars appear. Have you had that experience?
Yeah.
You look at the sky, a cloudless sky, you see a few stars. If you keep on staring, your eyes will become more accustomed to looking at the darkness, and you'll see more and more stars appear as your eyes become better at detecting. So sometimes people will say, I had nirvikalpa samadhi, but if they're just not used to experiencing deep states of silence, they'll think there's nothing there, but there may still be subtle objects there.
Mm.
In truth, in truth, the nirvikalpa samadhi, that's a state of mind that comes and goes. There are always subtle objects still there. When there are absolutely no subtle objects there, that is liberation. But the people won't always recognize that.
Yeah, when I'm in self-inquiry deeply, I feel like that's why I had the question because I wasn't sure if there were objects or not. But from what you're saying, it sounds like there were still some quite subtle objects, or it was just like a lot quieter than
That's right.
a lot less perception than usual. Yeah.
Exactly. And our minds see things relatively, you see. So the change from
Mm,
noisiness to quietness is perceived as silence, but actually, if you stay in that longer, yeah, you might notice actually there's still some noise there. Or I'm
mm,
using the word noise to mean perceptions or objects.
mm,
There are many things a coarse mind cannot perceive. And as our mind becomes more refined and subtle, we'll start to notice these things. This will happen to you as your mind quietens down. You'll start to notice things that you previously were not able to notice. It's very natural. Whenever you go into silence, you can, if you want, ask yourself, who am I? To whom does this silence arise? You see? And then that will take us back to the self rather than to an object of silence. It will take us back to ourself, which is the true silence, as opposed to the relative silence of lack of noise in Maya. When I say lack of noise, I mean diminishment of noise, less noise. Maya is just noise. Have I confused you more at the end there? Or any questions?
No, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, George. Oh, one other distinction actually. The way Bhagavan Ramana uses the terms, the nirvikalpa samadhi that comes and goes, he calls kevala, kevala nirvikalpa samadhi. And the samadhi that doesn't come and go, he calls sahaja nirvikalpa samadhi. That's another term you'll hear in the way he talks about things. There are other authors and writers in years gone by who use those terms differently, in different ways. So that's just one way of explaining it. In many, many Vedanta scriptures, we'll see the necessity for samadhi, for liberation. In the Upanishads too, you'll see it. And then other places they say, oh no, samadhi is a worthless state,
Mm.
meaning the trance-like state in the mind. Even the
That
tra Yes,
uh, it makes me wonder what state Bhagavan entered when he went into that death state when he was like 16. Was that a kind of samadhi, or was it just like that sort of?
that was Sahaja Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which means, what does that mean, George?
So the natural samadhi without objects, so
Yeah,
permanent self-realization.
that
Yeah.
means self-realization.
Mm.
We don't even need to say permanent self-realization, although we can, as you have done, because self-realization is permanent. If it's not permanent, then it's not self-realization.
Mm.
Self-realization, self-knowledge only happens once. If you had it once and then it went away, that means you didn't have it. Sahaja Nirvikalpa Samadhi only happens once. That's liberation. Self-knowledge only happens once. If it happens twice or three times, it means that previous times were not it because it went away. If it went away, that's not genuine self-knowledge. That's something else. That's an object. It's perception. It's an experience. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. In um in Gaudapada's commentary on Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada Karika, Gaudapada explains that it's through samadhi that the self is realized. And then Shankara wrote a commentary on this. And Shankara says, yes, it is through samadhi the self is realized. And then he gives two explanations. He says, either this is because the self is samadhi, meaning the two are synonyms. The self is samadhi, samadhi is the self. Or he says the other interpretation of this verse is that we samadhi is the way the self is realized, means we attain self-realization by placing our attention towards the sense I am, towards the sense of self. So that's one place. It's explained. Interestingly, if you read English translations of these works, they don't use the word samadhi for some reason, because what's happened in modern Vedanta, what I call neo Vedanta, neo means new, in more modern expositions of Vedanta that in my opinion deviate from the traditions, they don't like this idea of samadhi as leading to liberation has fallen out of fashion, even though it's in the scripture. So when they translate those texts, they actually they don't translate samadhi as samadhi. So if you're an English speaking person, you don't know any Sanskrit, you can't read the Sanskrit writing. When you read these scriptures, you won't find where it says Gaudapada says through samadhi, because they don't translate it in English that way anymore, a lot of these people. But if you go to the Sanskrit, you'll see the word he uses is samadhi. So there's a lot of sort of strange misrepresentation. It's not strange, really, it's human nature. Many humans will misrep many people. Well, I sound like an alien, don't I? Many humans will misrepresent texts, but many people will misrepresent texts to suit their own agenda, of course, to support their own point of view. So, but the wonderful thing is we have the original Sanskrit. The word samadhi is there. If you go on tomdas.com, you'll see the translation. If you look up my page on Shankara Gaudapada Samadhi, tomdas.com, you'll find it. Okay, welcome.
So when you were talking with George, I had followed most of what you were saying, and there was there were a few things you said that somehow I didn't catch what you were saying, and there were three different points. I don't know if they're all connected or not. One was about thinking there are no objects, and really there are. You're just not, your senses aren't subtle enough to pick them up. And something about a trance state and something about deep sleep. So I guess my main question is, in deep sleep, what state are you in? And that might be the answer to me that I'm looking for.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Gail. So that's a very good question, actually, because I was talking about deep sleep as a state that comes and goes. That's how I was framing it. Whereas actually deep sleep is actually our true nature. It's actually where our true nature hides. The first point you made was you explained it yourself. It's essentially when we're in the state of samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, that comes and goes. It's a trance-like state. It means, what I mean is that it's an experience in the mind. It's a mental thing. It's an experience. It's an object that arises to us. Okay, it's a very subtle object. We may think there are no objects, but because our mind and our faculties perceive through contrast, you see, if you're in a very noisy area and suddenly it becomes quiet, you might think it's completely silent. Because in contrast to the noise, it is now feels silent. But actually there might still be subtle noises going on that you're just not picking up because previously you're accustomed to such a noisy environment. So in nirvikalpa samadhi that comes and goes, which is not the self, it's an object, it's a state of mind, state of consciousness, you could say, state of mind. There is actually always a subtle object still there. And it's a trance-like state, meaning it's like it's a dull state of mind. Comes and goes. Yeah, tamasic state. Tamas is that dull energy. It's a tamasic state. The true samadhi is the self-realization. It's totally different. It's self-knowledge, self-realization. Ramana translated several of Shankara's works into English, into Tamil, I should say, which were then translated into English. And he translated the entirety of Shankara's Vivekachudamani into Tamil. And then he wrote an introduction to that translation. And in that introduction, he explains how nirvikalpa samadhi is the same as self-knowledge. And this is how we attain self-realization. He explains it in that introductory text. That is the true nirvikalpa samadhi. There are no objects in that. That is also Sahaja nirvikalpa samadhi. Later on, Bhagavan describes how in Vivekachudamani, Shankara is actually talking about Sahaja nirvikalpa samadhi because they're the same thing. That's the true nirvikalpa samadhi. There are no objects present. It's just self-realization. That is the same as deep sleep. In deep sleep, there are no objects present by definition. If there are objects present, it is called either dream or it's called waking. This is explained in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and by Bhagavan in his teachings. You can look up deep sleep on tomdas.com. There's a page, I think it's called Deep Sleep and Self-Realization, and it's also called Falling Asleep During Realization, or something like that. Falling Asleep During Self-Inquiry, something like that. And you'll see Bhagavan's teachings on deep sleep. It also explains why. Gaudapada also talks about this in his commentary on Mandukya Upanishad. He also then goes on to explain why, if deep sleep is the self, then why you don't attain realization when you fall asleep, which is the common question, or what's the word? It's the common rebuttal to that teaching. It's like if deep sleep were truly the self, then every time you fall asleep, you just need to attain liberation. You just need to fall asleep. Both Gaudapada and Bhagavan Ramana explain why that's not the case. For brevity, I won't go into that now. You can have a look at that article. But deep sleep is actually our true nature. I told a story about it in a post recently. I might have also said it here. But it's a story about the devil trying to hide liberation, because the devil thrives on ignorance. And he was trying to figure out where to hide liberation so no one would find it. And Bhagavan Ramana also tells a version of this story, but here's my version. Or here's a version that I'm sharing today. The devil thought, well, maybe I'll hide it in a faraway land, in the desert somewhere. I'll hide liberation there. And then he thought to himself, no, these human beings, they're very good explorers. Eventually someone will dig it up and find it. So then he thought to himself, maybe I'll hide it at the bottom of the ocean somewhere. And then he thought to himself, gosh, no, these human beings, they go everywhere. They're very good at exploring. They'll find it at the bottom of the ocean. And one day they'll attain liberation. So then he thought, well, maybe I shouldn't hide it anywhere in the waking state because these human beings, they love exploring the waking state. So I'll hide it in the dream state somewhere. And then he thought, you know what? These annoying humans, they love talking about their dreams as well, some of them. So they'll find it in their dreams. So I know I'm going to hide it where no one ever will look for it. I'm going to hide it in deep sleep. So the devil hid liberation in deep sleep, knowing that it's the one place human beings never look for liberation. Because people think of deep sleep as a nothing, a void, a blank. Nothing to see here. Move on. Nothing to see here. It's boring, dull. So, human beings, devil was very happy with his choice. He thought that's good. And then he watches in glee as human beings explore their dreams and their waking state, looking for liberation, but never go into Jagrat Sushupti. Jagrat Sushupti means waking sleep, conscious sleep where liberation is found, as the Upanishads tell us. The Upanishads tell us Jagrat Sushupti is the way. Thank you, Gail. Just fall asleep, stay awake. Just fall asleep, but remain conscious as you fall asleep. That is liberation. You'll know yourself. Thank you, everyone. My love to you all. Ramana, 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 Ramana. Keep Ramana. Keep Bhagavan in your hearts. Ramana, Ramana. Thank you. Bye-bye.